Let's talk a little bit about this whole Common Core issue that apparently is sweeping the nation right now. Something that I don't fully understand the repercussions that are taking place. I just don't understand the controversy. I followed Common Core, got my oldest daughter. I used to see her on CNN at the 7 o'clock hour or 8 o'clock, wherever you happen to live in this country, hosting her own show. She hosted the NBC morning show on weekends, Campbell Brown, and she's very involved in education. And I said, tell me about Common Core. She said, Dad, this is not the federal government. This is not Obama. This was all the governors, primarily Republicans, that came up with the idea, who said that the standards are not uniform. We can't give a gauge as to how effective education is in state after state. Not what they teach, not what they're learning, not what books they use, not what courses they take, but how attainable their average is. In other words, a child in New York City that gets a B+, is that the same as a child in Cairo, Illinois? Does the B+ the same? And often it's not. A B one place is a C in another place, or a D one place is a B in another place. So at least get uniform standards so that we can be sure that we're all rising up in this competitive world today. We're being challenged so much by the Indians and the Chinese and countries throughout this world that are doing much better in education than we are. So don't tell anybody what to teach, how to teach, but at least be able to test at the same level. Sounds pretty elementary to me. Most of the governors jumped on board. In most states, the educational system is either controlled by the governor or by an elected board of education. Sometimes the board of education is appointed. And so in my home state, we've got a board of education down in Louisiana. They're elected, and they decided to endorse Common Core. So all of a sudden now it's become this right-wing plot to take over the federal government to take over our school systems all over America. I just don't see it. If I thought that were true, I'd be speaking out strongly against it. I went to a concert the other night with a good friend of mine who owns a newspaper here in Louisiana. His date was a principal of a good-sized high school in my hometown of Baton Rouge. And she said, I hope you'll talk about that Common Core issue and get people riled up. We've got to oppose Common Core. I said, why do you feel that way? She says, well, if Common Core passes, you'll only be able to teach English books in American by American writers. You couldn't teach an English author or a Russian author. You couldn't let your students read Leo Tolstoy. They couldn't read Jane Austen. They couldn't read Dickens. That would be outlawed by Common Core. Now, this is not some average person that maybe has been brainwashed. This is a principal of a large Louisiana school who says she's absolutely convinced that the curriculum will be determined by the federal government and Common Core, and she's just wrong. I looked into it. I asked that question. Gosh, if that's true, and I can't read Charles Dickens, or my grandchild can't read Charles Dickens like I could when I was a youth, then I'm against it. But of course, that's not the truth at all. There's been so much misinformation out there about this issue, and now legislators are raising Cain about it. The Tea Party has jumped in. We've got a governor down in Louisiana named Bobby Jindal. Jindal, who's running for president, obviously, was one of the authors of Common Core, did television spots in favor of Common Core. Now, because of the pressure from some groups that he's pandering to for the election, presidential nomination, now he's all against Common Core. That just shows you how crazy this whole thing is. Look, I'm going to keep studying the issue, and if I can find one iota of evidence that the federal government's going to have any say-so over how we run schools where I live down in Louisiana and where you live in Cairo, Illinois, and New York City and Banning, California, you folks from coast to coast to listen to my radio station, then I'll join you in strongly opposing it. But as for now, I just don't see it happening. It's much ado about nothing. We'll be right back.